All right. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Troy Riggs. I am the executive director of the Alliance for Innovation. And obviously, Dr. Mowry couldn't be with us today. He is traveling and doing some training, but we'll be back next month. But today, our special guest is Chris White, who is the president of Twilight Training. And you may look at Chris and say his name and his face looks familiar, and that's because he did some work with SGR back in the day on about efficiency and effectiveness. So many of you already know him. And I will tell you, Chris, recently, the folks at SGR from the cities at AFI, we just got back from our Transforming Local Government conference.
Yeah,
Everyone was talking about DOGE. They're talking about tariffs. What does this mean for local governments? And
yeah,
you and I were speaking a little bit earlier. Really, government has the responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility of being efficient and effective in all things. And that's the best preparation when it comes to DOGE and some of the tariffs. So we
absolutely.
thought having Chris here would be an excellent resource for SGR members and AFI members to learn more about Lean Six Sigma. And Chris, I don't want to take up any more of your time because I know you have some great information for us. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you, and hello everybody. If you've met me before, great to see you again, and thanks again for the time. And yeah, it's a real interesting time right now. And you mentioned tariffs and just all the things going on. It is unclear. There will be some direct impacts for states and cities, but a lot of it's going to be more indirect, and that's the toughest thing. Is it's difficult to track, but as everyone, all the citizens in your city begin to struggle, if there's if cost of everything is going up, well, that of course may not be a direct impact on the city, but indirectly, how those citizens are now interacting in your city begins to play a part. So it's really interesting. So let me go ahead and show some slides, and give me just a second here. And there we go. That should be um, showing. It is not showing. Are y'all seeing it now? Sorry about that, Troy. Hopefully, y'all are seeing it now.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic. Well, thanks. So, what I really wanted to do is just really talk in general about Lean and Six Sigma, and I don't want to make this too political and talk a lot about DOGE, but this idea of government efficiency is surely out there, and no matter what side of the party line you're on, I think everyone would like to see more efficient, more effective government activities, and feel that taxpayer dollars are being well spent and stewarded well. And so let's just kind of get into some of this and hopefully get some questions going. This is more just overview, and I'm not tracking questions, but feel free to do the questioning, and then we'll come back to that after I walk through a few of these slides. If you got something to say immediately, feel free to hop in out and know if that's allowed, Troy, but I'm okay with it. So, you start with, well, then you hear Lean Six Sigma, and what is Lean Six Sigma? And really, it's been two different things coming together. You've got Lean, which is a lot about eliminating waste and creating good flow through processes. You have Six Sigma, which is about reducing variation, making something more consistent so that every time that process occurs, every time that invoice is run, I know exactly how long it's going to take. And so what we're really doing with Lean Six Sigma is trying to combine those two, get the benefit of both of them. And there are tools that are definitely sort of Lean tools and Six Sigma tools, but they're kind of brought together and mixed in this new Lean Six Sigma, trying to get the best of both. But what's most important from what I have seen and my experience is that it gives a structured methodology for going through this. And you see these chevrons at the bottom: define, measure, analyze, improve, control. And they're just gates to go through for a project, a Lean Six Sigma project. And it helps make sure that at every step along the way, benefits are being realized, so that you're not well into a project and then find out, oh, that's not, this isn't going anywhere, not worth it, and we spent all this time and money. So it sort of puts you through these gates, and there's certain things you do in each of these steps that set you up for success in the next step. And so to me, it's this combination of two sets of activities for eliminating waste, reducing variation, increasing consistency, and this structured approach, which is fantastic and helps a lot. So benefits of Lean Six Sigma, I mentioned consistency, more consistent and predictable processes. So no longer, when a developer comes and says, "Well, how long is this going to take?" It could take anywhere from 2 to 9 months. We have no idea. We don't want to answer that way. We want to say, yeah, that's going to be 16 weeks or something more precise. The employees are going to enjoy this. There's more participation, increased participation and leadership from just employees throughout the organization that feel more empowered to do things. Obviously, the work focuses on making things better. So the work that's coming out, the things that are being done are higher quality, reduced cost, be it through removing waste in the sense of, hey, we got too many mistakes, or things are sitting around too long, or you're finding out where not as many people are needed in this process. That doesn't mean cutting the people. That means let's move them somewhere else where they're more needed, and let's balance things out. Shorter cycle times, or you may say the word lead times. Processes, how long do they take? It creates this better kind of overall culture and higher morale with everybody, because they feel like they're moving things forward, feel like they're doing things more productive. These techniques are incredible. Many of them are very simple. A lot of people think there's a lot of math. There is some math, but a lot of them are very simple to apply and just immediately have some impacts. But most importantly is that it increases customer satisfaction. And for cities, I want you to think that's your citizens, that's your council, that's your mayor. All of them are happier that everything is going better and flowing smoothly and all that. Now, this is all from here on. This is Chris's personal, having done this for 20 years now. But some of the most common responses that I've seen from cities are, well, that's just for manufacturing. We don't really make anything here. We're a service organization, but actually you do make stuff, invoices, service orders. Those are all things that are being made. Granted, they may be paper, but they are still making something, creating something. A process is a process, and all of this is about improving processes. So any kind of process where you're transforming something, again, it could be paper. And some cities actually, if you're talking maintenance of trucks and fleets and things like that, there may actually be true manufacturing things going on. But what it comes down to is a process is a process, and these techniques apply to processes. Another big response that I often get, well, we don't need it. We're doing just fine. No one's complaining. Well, to that I say, so when did fine become excellence? We all want to do better. We claim to be sometimes high performing organizations or excellent organizations, and where does just doing mediocre or doing just well enough, where does that fit in that excellence range? And it doesn't. But what's interesting is if you're not getting complaints, that can be even worse, because when you get complaints from either citizens or even employees internally, then you know what they're complaining about, what you need to go fix, or you at least have some sort of direction. But when no one's complaining, they're just either walking out, employees are leaving, or citizens are not doing what they want to do, or developers aren't coming to your city because it's a hassle. And you don't hear any of that, so you don't really know what you need to make better or how to win those folks back. Last, it costs too much. It takes too long. Well, and to that I say these days, and especially in this DOGE environment that we're talking about, you can't afford not to. You can't afford to look like you're not doing anything. And any city that has done this, any organization, and I'll say any city, says it is worth the money. It may seem like it costs a little extra to kind of jumpstart things, but it all gets paid back, tenfold, if not more. And again, it's an imperative now. And if we're talking about reducing times and doing things faster, time is money. And so the more we can do that, the better. So Lean Six Sigma typically for manufacturing, but can cities themselves improve? Well, of course they can. Everything's a process, like I was saying, and all processes can be improved. We can shorten how long it takes. We can increase the quality or reduce the number of issues, or I'll say non-conforming work defects. We can do things with less people, less materials, less equipment, less supplies. And again, that does not mean we're laying people off necessarily, but we're taking them from one process that is doing better and moving to another process that may need some work. But in the end, you're also increasing capacity and throughput. The things that you're doing, the number of development projects coming through, the number of service orders for some group coming through increases. And is it worth the effort? Of course, it's worth the effort. Any city that's doing this will tell you that their city staff are happier, more enthusiastic about work, feel like they're contributing. The reputation now with your citizens, your developers, companies, the council, all better. Less complexity and confusion, so that everything's very smooth and you're understanding what everyone's supposed to be doing and who's who in the zoo, all that kind of stuff. And what it comes down to is better stewardship of taxpayer money. And so all that is very, very possible for cities. And again, these are cities. You could go on the internet and just do a Google search or AI search for what cities have done Lean Six Sigma projects or however you want to do that. But these are actually ones that I have dealt with. And so I'm from here on, I'm just talking about cities that I have dealt with so that I'm speaking from fact and not hearsay. But these are all cities and even more so, more that I've worked with that I haven't put logos on here, but all types of processes, development process, capital improvement projects, processes within the fire, police, and public safety areas, economic development, tourism, parks, maintenance, all those everywhere within the city is possible. And do lots of training, teach people how to do this, so you're building that capacity within the city organization itself. These are a couple of examples I want to highlight with, these are cities I've worked with, actual examples, so that you kind of see how what it looks like and what's possible. Here's a building inspection process improvement. So it started with the average time it took for residential permits was a lot higher than what the city said that they wanted to do. So the average that they found that when we measured it was 17 days. So they were only getting 7 permits done per month. But their goal was really 10 days, and they were claiming 10 days. And so that would have been 11 permits per month, but they weren't doing that. So in all this analysis, looking at things and finding out what to do, again, this structured process, the improvement was to dedicate one resources to working these permits on specific days. So, Tuesday afternoon or, Thursday morning, these are set times where this resource would be taken off the floor, because that's a lot of times they would get called to do other things, and where that resource was allowed to dedicate that time. And it ended up not impacting all these other activities that they thought that resource was needed for. And they were able to reduce that cycle time from 17 days down to just a little over 2 days. So their capacity became 52 permits per month. And if we kind of look at that in a chart form, which usually on these projects, you want to be able to show and demonstrate improvement. You can see this wiggly line that says, man, we're all over the place. In fact, it was rising over time from, if you start way back on June of this calendar on this, they were at an average of 10 days, got up to 15. You can see it growing, and it's up to, by the time you're that next June, you're up to 25, an average of 25. And at one point they hit a really high 27. And so they implemented that improvement, and you can see where it dropped all the way down in just the span of a month, from that high of 27, or even just, again, the average of 17, but down to that too. And when we calculate the potential impact of all that, the resource, the speed at which now permits were coming through and businesses were getting online and up and running, and taxes were being collected, and impact fees and everything, all the fees associated. Anyway, ended up being a $4.1 million potential financial impact. So true savings and true impacts. And again, these are real world. I've worked with these cities. Another one, sewer line maintenance process improvement. Sounds pretty simple, but what they've, then this entire sewer line for the city needs to be cleaned every year. And they were finding out that the current performance was only 12,000 feet per week is what they were doing, but they really needed to get up to 28 is where they were really shooting for. So for the project, they just said, well, let's just try to get up to 15. We want to get up to 28,000 feet a week, but let's at least just get to 15. And so let's have this, 25% improvement here. one of the things they did was they realized that GIS was not getting used to its full potential. And so some of what they were measuring wasn't really truth. And so it didn't mean they were, purposely lying or anything. They were just doing their best of saying, well, from the distance from, this fire hydrant to that fire hydrant is X, and that was wrong. So some of the actual measuring was incorrect, and so they didn't know exactly what they were getting done. And then they also trained the employees, said, hey, this is what we're trying to shoot for, because no one really knew what they were going for before. So you can see some of these improvements are just really simple, really simple. And what they did was got them up to 25,000. So they're not up to the ultimate goal of 28,000, but they're up to 25,000 feet a week, significant improvement. And everyone's aware, and everyone's talking, and everyone's looking, and everyone's watching how they're doing against that metric. And if we kind of take a look at the chart at the end of that, these are the kinds of charts we like to see with these projects. You see a lot of variation, a lot of inconsistency on the left half of this. And you can just see just the dots going up and down, very inconsistent. Some weeks they got barely anything done. Some weeks they got 40,000 feet done, and it just inconsistent. They couldn't trust it, didn't know what they would get done the next week. And then you see once they implement an improvement, they're a lot more tighter, they're a lot more consistent, and they're, in this case, higher on the chart, which is good. So they're higher on the chart and they're more consistent. So we not only increased the average, the throughput, but we also made it more consistent so that they had a better feeling of, every week we're going to get anywhere from, say, 20 to 30,000 feet done. Whereas before they were saying, well, it could be anywhere from 0 to 45,000. So a lot more consistent. And the potential financial impact of this ended up being a little over $8 million. So just some very good examples. Cities are doing this. Again, go search if you want, but these are examples, some short, simple examples from what I've done that show that cities can do this. And with the government efficiency push these days, it is definitely an imperative for cities to begin to consider and look at least appear, and hopefully actually do, but at least appear that they're doing some of this work, just because politically and reputation wise, that's where we are these days. So Troy, I want to just sort of end with that. I don't know if we want to keep this slide up. I can easily take this slide down, but hopefully y'all got some questions along the way.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, thank you for that. And for everybody that's watching, I put my email address. So if you have any follow-up questions down the road or any additional thoughts, feel free to email me directly. Hey, Chris, just so people understand, I know you did some training in the past. I think it was in Six Sigma. Can you give us a difference between Lean Six Sigma and Six Sigma, how they differ?
Okay, well, so Six Sigma definitely has a set of techniques that are very statistical in nature. A lot of things with Six Sigma, Sigma itself is a statistical reference to standard deviation. But Six Sigma tends to be very mathematical in the sense. Now, there's improvements that you're making, but the whole idea is to prove statistically that what you did made a difference. And that's where the statistics usually come in. And there's a lot of data analysis because you don't want to go off gut feel. You want to go off true data instead of saying, well, we think it's doing this. Well, let's go find out, is it really doing that? And as we make our one or two improvements, did we move the needle? And can we prove that, yes, this wasn't normal? The reason this got better was because we inserted an improvement in the process and that drove it. So you get a lot of that. And then Lean is more about kind of this flow and getting as much through as possible and balancing that flow. I'm sure y'all all have processes where you're one step in the process and you feel like, man, I'm overwhelmed, and that part of the process over there has nothing happening. And that changes. And sometimes you don't have much going on and another part of the process does. So Lean is all about kind of balancing that and getting some smoother flow and getting anything that's what we'll call wasteful, that's not value added, get that out of the way. So when you put those together, you get a nice combination of both of those benefits, where historically each one has focused on a different aspect of improvement or efficiency, and now coming together, you get both of those combined.
Yeah, thanks for that. As you were talking, I was thinking about my time. My hometown is Louisville, Kentucky. And while I was there, I won't mention the companies, but one is a multinational company. and they credited Six Sigma with enhancing their bottom line. And the other thing, Chris, that was remarkable to me is that the morale of their employees went up. Everybody knew what the mission was, and they had a goal. And then there was another company that near and dear to Americans' heart. Once again, I'm not at liberty to use their name because I haven't talked to them, but uh, the owner of it told me shockingly how close they were to closing, and
Mm.
it was Six Sigma that actually saved their business, and that was 25 years ago. And guess what? They're still moving along strong today. Hey, we have a couple of questions here. How do
Okay.
you gain leadership buy-in, even with all the discussion with DOGE and all the political things are going on? How do you get your leadership to buy in?
Ooh, that is a very tough one because leadership buy-in is absolutely essential. I have worked with cities where they have done a great job and they ended with the wonderful breakfast and bring everybody in and show results and this is fantastic. And then I check back 6 months later and there's nothing. Um, and things whatever was improved kind of went back to where it was before, so performance degraded and all that. And so I talked with the city manager, assistant city managers, and I said, this is on y'all. I said, how many times after that breakfast did you go ask anybody what's going on, how's your effort, ask any questions, show any kind of interest? And there wasn't any of that. And why would people want to do something if leadership doesn't support it or doesn't think it's worthwhile? If it's not worth their time, why is it worth my time? And so leadership buy-in is absolutely essential. How do you create that? That's a tough thing. How do you, if someone's not already trying to do that? A lot of times it's not that people don't want to improve or cities don't want to improve or leadership doesn't want things to get better. It's that they don't realize how to do it or how it's possible. And that's where the structured methodology of the Lean Six Sigma approach of having these steps along the way and being very laser focused. You're not trying to, most of the projects, the average time is 3 months. It's supposed to be 3 months. When you have a project that's going 9 months, it just dies of its own weight and everyone begins to lose interest. So these are very focused efforts. Just go do one or two things, get the benefit. Now that means the benefit's not going to be earth shattering necessarily, but if I can just go in and already get a 10 or 15% improvement in something in just this little effort, fantastic. I've started moving the needle. I've started to buy myself some capacity to do some of this work. So a lot of times it's not that people, leadership doesn't want to, it's that they don't know that there are some good, easy, simple techniques for doing so.
Yeah, as we're talking about DOGE, and I know DOGE is on everybody's mind, the tariffs are on everyone's mind, not being political. It just whether you're for some of these, against it, doesn't matter. How does it impact local government? That's our focus.
Right.
And one of the things that I say is as people are starting to talk about this and it's being localized, DOGE at some point will go away. It won't be the hot topic it is now, whether it's 4 years from now, 8 years, who knows, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is there is significant debt in the US economy right now, $36 trillion debt. If you put in, I don't want to get too nerdy here, but if you put in some of the unfunded liabilities, you're talking about 150 trillion plus for
Mhm.
just 111 million workers in America. So the numbers don't match up. So there's going to be some belt tightening with or without DOGE. And I think that is a compelling argument. And we do have a fiduciary responsibility in government to be effective and efficient. So I think that's important. Here's another question. I think this is great is, maybe cities have tried to do this in the past. Maybe it's not Lean Six Sigma, but they've tried to do efficiency things and it hasn't been successful. There may be a stigma attached to it. How do you recommend implementing those methodologies? Again, I think part of what you said a minute ago, finding something small and building on it
Mhm.
is part of that answer, but I'll let you answer.
Yeah, it's that one of the things I really like about the approach is that it is this small laser focus. We're going to do just one or two things. We're going to do them quickly. We're going to go in and make an impact and begin to move the needle because that's when you start relieving some of that pressure. And all right, now we're not all working 50-hour weeks and we don't have time for all this. Now we're starting to buy ourselves a little bit of time and capacity to then go do the next one. But yeah, I see the question that Amy has asked, when a city has failed, and there's now a stigma around it. What would you recommend for reintroducing methodologies? So that's a very interesting question, because I have worked with cities that have done that. I mentioned the one where they had the great breakfast and everything was fantastic and everyone loved it, and then walked away, and those the employees in that city just felt betrayed a little bit, that we did all this, you spent the money, you gave us these skills, and now you don't want us to use them. And for that, in that situation, I really focused on the executive management, the city manager and assistant city managers, and said, what are y'all going to do this time to make this different? Because you saw the benefits, you felt the excitement, you saw the enthusiasm, you saw the benefits of this, and what are you going to do this time? And really turned it around on them. And maybe that works, doesn't always work, but with another city, what we did was came back and we never mentioned Lean Six Sigma at all. So we just said, we're going to just do some things a little different and a little better, and worked with some teams in that sense. Now, what I was working with them, we were using tools and techniques, but it was not under the guise of, we're doing this big Lean Six Sigma, because that can be kind of scary for folks, and a little bit intimidating. But to just know, and then to find out later, well, wait, so those are some of the Lean Six Sigma approaches? Yeah, that's, y'all were already, that's what we were doing. And so the two that I have seen that have worked, there could be many, but is having the serious discussion with leadership, the executive, the city manager and assistant city managers, helping them understand their role in the success of this. And then also if it helps not to say it, if it's got a stigma, and just don't say it, and still do it. But the last thing is what cities have to get to is where part of, if you've got people doing these improvements, that needs to be built into their schedule, their week, like 4 hours a week. We know you're doing this, or 8 hours a week, whatever it happens to be. And that's part of your performance appraisal, whatever. It becomes part of your job to do this, not on top of what you're already doing. We're going to do things to remove from your schedule these things that now we want to replace. You're a yellow belt, a green belt, and we expect you to work on projects. Fantastic. We're going to give you time in your schedule to do that, so that in your 40-hour week, this is part of your workload. It is expected. You'll get measured on this. Fantastic. What kills it is when employees are asked to go beyond all the time. There may be in the very beginning, I get it, there may be in the very beginning a little bit of push, but when I work with cities, I say immediately after that first push, you have to start working this in and making it a formal part of your arrangement and work with employees. So I hope that's a good answer.
Yeah, I think it is. And as we think about that, someone that has failed at doing this in the past is the federal government. And if you go back, and we've been doing a lot of work on AI, and also looking at DOGE and some of the things in the past, but President Obama really worked hard to try to lower waste in government and put some people in, and they did some good work. But now there's technology, and they're using algorithms that can go through this just labyrinth of bureaucracy and find things. And that technology is going to be available at some point to our local government. So I think that's important. We had a couple other questions there. What's a good strategy to convince a city manager of the benefits? One, I think as part of that answer, could you tell us, in all of your experience, are there certain departments that are better organized to see the immediate impact of Lean Six Sigma?
That's a great question. I want to first start off with how do you get city managers or leadership, and I can only do so much, or I can only convince them so much. What I generally do is put them in touch with other cities that I have worked with, or that I know are doing this work. It doesn't necessarily have to be because I've worked with it, but I know the people and I know the work they're doing, and they're doing good work. And I put them in touch with those people and say, if you don't believe me, go talk to them and go find out. And generally, that is what can change their mind. Now, obviously, you can lead a horse to water and can't make them drink, and so you can't make everybody. And that's a personal thing. But I generally let their peers tell them what's good. But Troy, you asked, so are there any processes, a lot of times where you'd be surprised, every process can be improved, and so it all depends on. Usually, I'm brought in and we start doing this because there has been some specific problem, and a lot of times it's the development process. In all honesty, that tends to be because you got a lot of folks outside yelling. You got city council, people coming to the mayor and saying this is taking too long. So the mayor's turning around to the city manager and saying this is taking too long, and so there's a lot of pressure. So the development process has been one, and that has been a big focus. But that wasn't even the two examples that I showed today. So you can see that it really applies everywhere. So.
Yeah, well, Chris, well, thanks for being here. I know people are talking about how to pitch this, and sometimes people don't want to believe data. They don't have other things you share and they don't want. But here's what I've learned in government is for those individuals that are motivated, if you work and get a plan together, there's going to be an opportunity. And it may be DOGE that gives you that opportunity. It may be a recession that gives you the opportunity. There may be something going on in your city that's unique that'll give you the opportunity to pitch that. Don't be dissuaded by a no. Sometimes a no is just helping you build your argument for a future yes. So make sure you have that on the kind of on the back burner, ready to go. You'll get your opportunity. I've seen that in my 30 years of government. But Chris, thank you so much. I hope we can work together with you in the future. And if anybody reaches out, we'd certainly like to put them in touch with you. But great information. Really appreciate everyone being here today. Have a great week, and we will talk to you again soon. Mike Maurer will be back next month, and he'll bring another exciting episode of this webinar. So thanks again, everyone.